Hi, I am Randy Brunansky, the Director of Academics at Aletheia Christian Academy, and I wanted to speak to parents who have students in Logic 2 this coming year. So, Logic 2 would be students that would be traditionally considered eighth grade. And so, if you have a student in Logic 2 and you were unable to make the curriculum workshop, I wanted to just go through the curriculum and what that looks like this year. So, let's begin with science. So, for science, the students are going to be reading two books. Both of them are by John Hudson Tyner. This one is physics, the world of physics, and they'll also be reading the world of biology. And these two books are great. It kind of goes through the history of science too, as well as the historical principles, the scientific principles that they want the students to learn. And so your student will complete the reading, and then they will come into class for hands-on activities and discussion that they can have over the material. And so for biology, there are some dissections and some microscope work. For physics, they will be building an oven and a rocket and even a boat that they can float in. And so science for Logic 2 is completing the reading. And then they will have an opportunity to do a science fair as well, which will be fun. For history, we are going to be using this curriculum called Forerunners of the Faith. This is a church history curriculum, and we are going to be going throughout this through the whole year, and we're going to be looking at church history and what was going on in the world at large. So we want to know what exactly was happening with the church, and we want to know what was happening outside of the church around it. And so we are going to start at the birth of the church. We're going to read through Acts, some of Acts to find out what was happening, and then we're going to trace it through to the Middle Ages and then to the Reformation and the Enlightenment. And so we will be using this book, and then we will be having other sources that the students will be reading that are given to them or they're told where to get them. And we will be having some walk through history days as far as the Middle Ages, and doing presentations on like what were the best thoughts or the best inventions in the Enlightenment. And so there will be reading that students have to be doing and keeping track of some things, and then doing some of their own research, but they will be taught how to do that. And so that's the Logic 2 students. Now, I don't think I mentioned it at the beginning. I do want to say that every student will be given a syllabus that has their week laid out. So week 1, this is what we're going to be doing at Academy, and then this is what you need to read the rest of the week so that you can come back for discussion. And so you kind of have to see the Academy day as like the last day of the school week. So you do all of your work so that when we come together on Tuesday, we can discuss that work. And it's important that you get your work done so we can have a good discussion. For Bible, what we're going to be doing is a really interesting book called Tactics. And this book is it's called A Game Plan for Discussing Your Christian Convictions. So to begin this section, we're going to have to even talk about what are Christian convictions? Like, what is a biblical worldview? And of course, we are dealing with students that are very much starting to think about these things. And so we're going to use this resource as well, Window on the World. We're going to look at some other religions briefly, and then we're going to look at Christianity and what that is. And if they've done Logic 1 last year, they did Gospel Primer, but if your student wasn't here, it's okay. We're going to review what is the gospel. And then we're going to go through this book and have some great opportunities to talk about different things with people who disagree with us and how do we have conversations. There is strategy to it. And so how do we talk to people who think different? I think we would probably all benefit from reading that. Composition is going to be the lost tools of writing. You only need the student workbook. If you're not familiar with the program and you're curious, you can buy the teacher book, which explains everything, but we will have a parent kind of trained on this, and the teacher will know how to use this and walk your students through it. But this is a guide to persuasive essay writing. And so we will be looking at different things with the lost tools of writing as we teach our students. Many of them have been using IEW for a while. This is a very different way of writing. It's a different focus. And so we'll be looking at the lost tools of writing. And so they will use this again. It's slated to be used again their freshman year. And so if that stays the same, I would recommend, like, this has writing in it. That's a bummer. I would recommend not writing in the workbook and just using a notebook so that you can reuse that book. There's literature listed that we'll be going through. We're looking at some short stories as well as some other literature. So you could look at the book list for the different literature for that. Oh, I didn't mention, I think this book is in for history, but we already covered that. But like I said, there's some outside reading for history that they will be doing. And then part of that English class is grammar. This is the textbook that they'll need for grammar. It's the core text each year, and the only thing that changes is the workbook. So they use a different workbook each year. If this is year one and you're only entering your first year here and this is it, like you could continue using this in high school if you wanted or not. 1 year will be okay. You go through it, the whole book. It's scripted. In eighth grade, I would imagine they could just read the lessons themselves and do it, but if they needed your help, that wouldn't be a problem either. For geography, your student will need access to maps and current news because they are going to be focusing on different regions of the world, and they need to bring in several articles from one of those countries that they're looking at, and then we'll have class discussion during that time. We'll also be doing cultural presentations where they research specifically a country, customs, food, dress, and they will come and present to the class and work on presentation skills and going in depth into that culture. And then at the last week of that class, they'll actually do a cultural fair where they'll pick a country and they'll represent it, write a paper on it, and this will be their presentation to Aletheia as a whole. And so I believe that I have covered all of our subjects. Oh, logic. I did not do logic. Okay, so for logic, we are going to be doing traditional logic 1 in the fall. That's already been scripted out. And so the traditional logic is the Memoria Press. They'll need a student text and the workbook. I know some editions have both put together, but they will need that Memoria Press book, the Memoria Press books, and they will finish that by Christmas. When we come back after Christmas, right now, there's still some discussion, so it's not been finalized. The original plan was to do a mock trial. That might be pushed off till high school, or we will do the mock trial. If we choose not to do the mock trial in spring and have a mock trial class, then we will look at doing Memoria Press Logic 2, although it's a little bit more intense than Logic 1. So those discussions are still happening, and you will be notified soon if you have your student enrolled in that class. And that is Logic 2.